Welcome to Radio Ecoshock. I'm Alex Smith with the first of 7 client stunners from 2016. Earth had a very strange year in 2016. It was the hottest year ever recorded, in a string of the hottest years ever recorded. Thousands of scientists around the world tried to make sense of it. We had the good fortune to interview some of the lead authors from the most important papers of the year. And in this program, what I'm going to do is play you some clips from those and try and put it all together. What does it mean? What do we know? And we're going to start in the Arctic because that's where something unprecedented happened this year. It was mind-breaking. What happened has never happened before in the time of Homo sapiens. There has been impossible winter heat in the Arctic, and because of that, weather in the whole Northern Hemisphere took an ugly twist. Temperatures in the December 30 Arctic was 30 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than normal, and naturally the formation of polar sea ice was far behind at record lows for December. Radio Ecoshock started covering the Arctic heating last spring with Dr. Peter Glick from the Pacific Institute, and the show is Extreme Arctic Fear, and it was released on March 9th, 2016. This is Dr. Peter Glick.
Frankly, what's happening in the Arctic is unprecedented because it affects the rest of us around the world in all sorts of ways, from changes in storm patterns, changes in circulation flows in the ocean. There are political implications of the rapid changes in the Arctic. I mean, it's a harbinger of things to come, and I think we all need to be worried about it. And for those scientists who focus on the Arctic, there's tremendous concern. I think there's really universal concern among Arctic scientists and among climate scientists that what's happening in the Arctic is not only unprecedented, not only an indication of the kinds of changes we're going to continue to see in the coming decades, but that those changes are bad.
It sounds like a big experiment we're running on the Earth. Do we really know what's coming?
Well, that's exactly right. We're running an unknown experiment on the only planet we have. If somebody were to propose doing this kind of experiment, they would be locked up as crazy because it's the only planet we have. And yet that's the experiment we're doing without knowing fully what the consequences are.
More recently, I talked with Dr. Ted Shepherd from the University of Reading in the UK. I asked him how a hotter Arctic could drive changes in Europe, in North America, and in Russia especially. It's been very bad there. We talked about his paper published September 2nd, 2016 in the journal Science. The title is The Effect of a Warming Arctic. Now, surprisingly, the trends in the Arctic are larger in winter than they are in the summer, and that's due to the release of ocean heat. Shepherd cautions us we can't necessarily use the past as a guide to the future. We're in for surprises. The interview with Dr. Ted Shepherd is in the October 26th show called The Climate Monster Rolls On. Now, regarding that savage weather that struck Siberia this winter and then rotated to North America, I got some of it. Another scientist, Paul Beckwith, says there's a heat budget on Earth. And if the coldest Arctic air is displaced by a heated ocean, the cold has to go somewhere. Scientists are still discussing whether the lack of sea ice cover can drive extreme cold weather further south. Check out my interview on exactly that question. In the Radio Ecoshock show for January 18th, 2017, I interviewed Dr. Judah Cohen. This could be big trouble. And it's because humans adjust their belief in global warming to whether they've experienced extreme heat or extreme cold. And when the cold wave hits, people feel comfortable denying climate change or just not thinking about it, even though the causes are an overheated Arctic. It's a psychological trap that blinds humans to the effects of our greenhouse gases. Find out more from the 2013 paper Blowing in the Wind, Short-Term Weather and Belief in Anthropogenic Climate Change, published by the American Meteorological Society. What does this unprecedented change in the Arctic mean? I turned to the University of Ottawa scientist Paul Beckwith. The interview was in the show Cracks in the Big Picture, published December 1st, 2016. It was heavily downloaded, and here's Paul. He teaches at the University of Ottawa in Canada, and he educates us all with his YouTube videos. Paul Beckwith, welcome back to Radio Ecoshock.
Hello, Alex. And now we've been setting records as lowest ice this time of year. And it's because the Arctic temperatures, they're 2 months behind in terms of cooling down. I mean, we're basically seeing temperatures in the Arctic now that we should be seeing in September. And you can compare the curves of all of the years, and we're well below where we would be expected to be this year. Not only that, the sea ice in Antarctica is dropping off of a cliff, and it's much lower than we've ever seen it there. So when you look at the total global sea ice on the planet, then because of the rapid drop in Antarctica and because of the record lows in the Arctic, they add to something which is completely off the charts. I mean, this is a measure of how quickly our planet is warming from all of the feedbacks that are in play.
I think people need to realize that these changes in the sea ice, even in the fall, could affect us right here where most of us live, in North America, in Europe, in Russia. How does that work?
The Arctic is getting darker because we're getting a rapid decline of sea ice, which is a white surface that reflects a lot of incoming sunlight during the summers in the Arctic. And as bad as the sea ice decline is, the snow cover over the land in the spring is declining at about double the rate that the sea ice is declining, and Greenland is melting a lot more, and we're getting lakes forming on the surface, which are dark surfaces on top of the white ice. And as the ice melts back, it's uncovering a lot of the dust and dirt and stuff that's embedded in the ice. So the whole Arctic region is darkening, and it used to reflect on average, about 52% of the incoming solar radiation. And now, according to NASA, it's as of a few years ago even, it was reflecting only 48% of the incoming light. So that additional 4% of light is being absorbed by the surface, leading to additional heating in the Arctic, which is causing the Arctic temperatures to rise much larger than the global average, and certainly much larger than the equator temperature, because the equator temperature doesn't change too much. When there's more heat at the equator, there's more evaporation of water, which doesn't raise the temperature. So that kind of moderates and keeps the equator temperature somewhat stable. If you live in a city on the equator, your yearly average temperature might only vary about 2 or 3 degrees. So what this means is that the temperature difference from the equator to the Arctic is getting much, much smaller as the Arctic is warming, and it's this temperature difference that determines the jet streams, how they form at the altitude that planes fly, and it also affects how wavy they are, how fast they are. So they're slowing down because the temperature difference is reduced, and they're becoming wavier and getting stuck. And this is causing the increase in extreme weather events that we're seeing. So we're seeing a higher frequency of torrential rains, for example, much more severe extreme weather, and also the duration is these events are lasting longer. So we're getting many cities flooded out because their infrastructure just cannot handle 3, 4, 5 months of rain in a night or two, which is happening commonly at cities. So we're changing basically the heat balance on the planet. Heat moves from hot areas, the equator, to the poles, and it does it about a third of the heat's transported in the ocean currents, 2/3 in the atmosphere. And because the poles are so much warmer, there's less heat transfer. So the ocean currents are changing, the atmospheric currents, namely the jet streams, are changing. So there's more heat moving to the southern hemisphere as a result, and that heat is changing. It's also causing extreme weather events in the southern hemisphere. So it's a global issue, and things are changing so fast. I mean, the flora and fauna, plants and animals, are stressed, and they're migrating quickly, and we're getting human migration as well, which is leading to nationalism and popularism and things like Brexit and Trump.
That was Paul Beckwith from the University of Ottawa, and this is Alex Smith for Radio Ecoshock, and stick with me. I'll be right back with more climate science stunners from 2016 that explain the world that we live in.